Against all hope, I will believe. Through raging wars, you fight for peace. You have always made a way, a path of beauty you create. And I know your love is strong enough to meet me where I am. Hallelujah, you will never let me down. Hallelujah, you will never let me down. Your hope runs through my veins. Your love, it paves the way. Out what lies ahead I cannot see. What lies ahead I cannot see. I know your voice will carry me. Nothing can pull me from your hands. No power against your hope will stand. And I know your love is strong enough to meet me where I am. Hallelujah, you will never let me down. Hallelujah, you will never let me down. Your hope runs through my veins. Your love, it pays away. Hallelujah. Closer, a little bit deeper into that. I want you to lift this up again. Let's sing hallelujah. You will never let me down. Sing it out with me. Hallelujah. You will never let me down. Hallelujah. You will never let me down. Your hope runs through my veins. Your love, it paved the way. Hallelujah. Lift it up. Hallelujah. Let your As I walk now through the valley, let your love rise above every fear. Like the sun shaping the shadow, in my weakness your glory appears. Come on, we sing this out. Not enough unless you come. Will you meet me here again? 'Cause all I want is all you are. Will you meet me here again? I'm not enough unless you come. Will you meet me here again? 'Cause all I want is all you are. Will you meet me here again? Meet us here again, Lord. You're in this place now. We feel your presence. Come on, I want you to sing this next part with me. Let's declare this right now. Not for a minute was I forsaken. The Lord is in this place. The Lord is in this place. Come, Holy Spirit, drop onto awaken. The Lord is in this place. Come on, if you believe this, I want you to raise your hands with me as we declare this. Not for a minute.
Hey, can we thank God right now? You can do better than that. Come on, if you're excited to be in church tonight, can we thank God? Man, that's so beautiful. Man, thank you for leading us. Worship team, can we show some love? Mosaic, come on, we love you guys. There's just something about worship that gets into you, doesn't it? See, right now we have Mosaic MSC is on tour, the Heaven Tour. They're in the Midwest somewhere. We love you guys. I think right now at this moment, they're on stage leading people in worship, and we are joining with them here in LA. That sometimes there's something that happens when we worship, and I just love that my man LJ right here. You guys know LJ? Come on. I love that. I met LJ like 3.5 years ago, and I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. It said, hey, can we talk? I have questions about Jesus. And I was like, yep, who are you? And I was like, how'd you get my number? And we met for coffee, and we just got to become friends. I got to hear his story. And 3.5 years ago, he didn't believe in Jesus, and now he's declaring who Jesus is. And it's so beautiful. So beautiful. So if you're here at Mosaic, and maybe this is your first time, you're like wondering how you got here. Maybe you're like LJ, and like, I just have questions. We just want you to know that here, you can trust God with your questions because he wants your whole life. So welcome to Mosaic. And what I'd love for you to do is just take the next 30 seconds. And as you sit down, say hi to somebody next to you, tell them your name, give them a hug, tell them welcome home. And you can have a seat. Today has been an amazing day. We have Baptism Sunday going on today. Make some noise for Baptism Sunday. It's been amazing. We've had over 40 people across all campuses today that have made that declaration to go all in, to declare that Jesus is Lord. So we're so excited to continue celebrating that tonight as people jump into the tub. So if you're here, and if it's your first or second time here at Mosaic, we'd love to see you and meet you. Can you raise your hand if that's you, first, second time? Come on now, look, give them a high five. Welcome. So many people that are brand new. We love you guys are here. Here's a little quick thing for you. On your seat when you walked in, there was a Connect card. Everybody, you can go ahead and pull that out right now. This is the best way for you to get connected, you to get plugged in. If you want to meet people, if you want to get in community, fill this Connect card out, and then you could drop it off in the offering bucket when it goes by, or you can also come to Next Step, which is in the back, when our team will be there just to love to meet you and help you get more plugged in. And then the other card on your seat is a prayer card, a prayer and praise, that we are a church that believes in the power of prayer. And so if there's things going on in your life that you just need prayer for, you need to be uplifted, want to encourage you as well. Fill this out, drop it in, and we have people on our team, on our church that will pray over these and pray that God would move in your life. So if that's you, don't hesitate, drop that in there, and we'd love to help join you in this conversation. And then next week, it is amazing. We are so excited because we're starting a brand new series here at Mosaic called what? Chasing Daylight. That's where you clap. Chasing Daylight. Come on. Man, this is amazing. I read this book over 10 years ago, and it changed my life. Like, it is full of just conversations around how we can seize the power of every moment, how we can become the person we always desperately long to be. And I'm so excited for this journey that we get to go on together through this book. So we're starting the series next Sunday, and want to encourage you, invite your friends. This is a great opportunity to get them here. And then to coincide with the series, we're gonna launch book clubs and crews all across the city, all across the world. So if you have friends that maybe aren't ready yet to come to church, you got friends like that? Anybody? Right? I know I got a few that are like, I'm not sure if I'm ready to go to church, but if you want me to go to a book club, I'm down. Right? So this is a great opportunity to open up your home, get your friends there, and then we're, as a church, also gonna host book clubs called crews all across the city. So I just wanna encourage you, host a book club, go to a crew, just get in community with people, and it's gonna be an amazing time that we are part of for the next 6 weeks. You guys down to do this with us? It's gonna be amazing, all right? And so now I get the honor and privilege. We're going to transition to a time where we receive our offering. And I love that we are Mosaic here in Hollywood, but we're also Mosaic, one church, one tribe all over the city. And so we have another campus on the west side that God is moving so profoundly. And I love this dude. He's like my brother from another mother, because it'd be weird if we were the same mother. But so much insight. So you guys show some love and give a warm welcome for Pastor Erwin McManus.
How you guys doing tonight? You good? So do you see these tabs on my Bible? You see them? So we had a leaders meeting this week, and I decided to mark every giving verse in the Bible, and I sat them down for 2 hours and went through every single one of them. It was awkward, but it was really great. And so we're gonna talk about giving. How many of you guys love giving? How many of you guys actually give? No, that was fake. I know the numbers. You got your Bibles with you? No? You were just cheering a second. So my name's Aaron. I look after Mosaic Venice and Mosaic Orange County with an amazing team. And Mosaic Irvine. A side note, the first day I ever went on my whole life was at the Irvine Spectrum on the Ferris wheel. I went on the Ferris wheel. She was a senior. I wasn't. 1 Corinthians 16:1. We're gonna give, yeah? It says the collection for the Lord's people. Now about the collection for the Lord's people, do what I told the Galatian churches to do. On the first day of every week, each one of you should set aside a sum of money in keeping with your income, saving it up. And this is the part that I underline. This is the part I want you to remember. This is the part you need to know. So that when I come, no collections have to be made. Imagine that. Imagine that every single person in this whole room was ready to give before we've ever even stepped in it. No? What a remarkable place would it be if our generation was the generation that led giving so beyond what anyone had ever seen before. When we walk into this room, it's like we do offering at the front door. How crazy would that be? No? This section does not believe me. It's okay. But you think about how many apps do you have on your phone that ask you for money before you go to whatever you're going to. Church is one of the few places where you go to and they expect you to just give if you feel compelled. But we do giving at the beginning of the service because we don't think it's how emotional you get at the end. It's what God's doing in your week before you ever even get here. Does that make sense? My good, is it just that I'm deaf in my left ear? I'm not sure. You alive in the back? You good? One guy. He probably from Irvine. So I want to read that verse real quick, and I want to tell a story, and then we're going to go. I got 30 seconds left. So that when I came, no collections will have to be made. I was in Singapore. I was preaching. If you know me, I don't love preaching. Preaching is tough. And then when you're in, I was actually in Malaysia. I was also in Singapore. And then the church in Malaysia, something happened. This church was so young. And you guys are pretty young, but they look like they were 12 years old, these kids in this church. And the keyboard player, just like yourself, how you doing? You good? Okay. So the offering bucket comes all the way over, like comes up the little stairs, goes right here, and the keyboard player, I swear she was 12 years old, just drops in her envelope. Drops, just with one hand. She's like playing with the other one. Drops it in. And I literally went, Kevin was with me, he saw me, I just was dying. I was like, no, anybody see that? The 12-year-old, she gives. It doesn't happen in America. We have to beg. But imagine where we would be if that was our culture, if that was our posture, if before we ever even started serving with our gifts, we're giving to our church, right? We're building this place that does so much for so many people. What are our baptisms numbers up at to now? There's 600 plus baptisms in 1 year. Come on. But I guarantee you there's less than 600 people who give reoccurring. So there's a lost in translation. I'm Bill Murray, let's go. You're all too young for that movie. Something has to happen from when you come to know Jesus to when you step into a relationship and you go, I'm not a goer anymore, I'm actually just a builder now, right? I'm not a place where I'm just gonna keep my hands open and receive whatever I receive. I'm actually gonna go, hey, this is what I got in my hands. I'm gonna give. I'm gonna build. I'm gonna give. Section over here, do something. Oh my gosh, people, the buckets, let's go. I'm over it. I'm gonna do it again at 8 and 9. What time is it? We do 11 p.m. service here now? Amazing. If anybody gives, good Lord. You ready to give? We have 4 ways to give. You can text, you can give online, you can download the app, or you can give in checks or in cash. You can let it flow in the buckets. I didn't say pass them, but you can pass them now. Let's go. And I'm gonna pray for the gift, the giving, and we're gonna go to some church news. Dear Heavenly Father, God, we love you so much. I pray over this offering and this campus and this place, Jesus. This place will be not just young people who come to receive, but a campus of people who come to give and to build and to be a place for others, Jesus. We pray over their finances, over their lives, over their workplaces, God, and over their families, Jesus, that you will continue to help them thrive and pursue them with everything that you have, God, that they can just give in return. In your name we pray, amen. Church news.
What's up, Mosaic? This is Church News, and we can't wait to tell you all the things that are happening this week at Mosaic.
We'd love to help you connect here at Mosaic, and one of the ways you can do that is to check out our Instagram. We post all the time about different events and things going on in the life of the church, and download the app. There's so many amazing resources on there, and stay up to date on all information.
Make sure you stop by Next Step after the gathering as well. We have some people who would love to meet you. Here at the Woods, we don't gather together just on Sundays. We meet at the 50-yard line on Wednesdays called Midweek.
Sports, and there's an extended time of worship, an amazing message. It's a great place to bring friends and meet friends. So come join us on Wednesday night for Midweek and take that half-court shot.
We were talking about football.
Did you know Mosaic MSC, our band, has just released a new album called Heaven? Me either. I totally know. I'm just kidding. I totally knew about it.
And 3, 2, 1.
It's amazing to hear the unique voice of Mosaic, the vision of Mosaic in musical form. So we want you guys to enjoy these songs. Download it today, pick up your copy today, put it into CD player today, hit repeat, make sure that button works, because sometimes you hit it, it just does one song and you'll be listening to that forever, which you can do. Or you can listen to all of them today.
Hey Mosaic, I'm so excited to announce that starting September 29th, Pastor Erwin is launching a brand new series called Chasing Daylight. See, I would not be in Los Angeles if it was not for that book. I read it, it changed my life, and I said I have to be at Mosaic. So here's what we're gonna ask of you. Join us, invite all your friends. It's gonna be a 6-week series, and around the series, we're gonna launch book clubs, we're gonna have crews. And so if you wanna host a book club, go to mosaic.org/chasingdaylight. You can see all the info on that. And if you're in LA, I want to encourage you to join a crew. It's a great space to meet people, get connected, be a part of what we're doing. It is going to be phenomenal. And there is a limited edition. So make sure you buy your copy at Next Step. Go get it now. Go get it today. Don't wait. I cannot wait for this series.
Our 2018 conference is a little over a month away, and this is a time where we gather as a community to create the future of the church.
We're bringing together some of the world's most incredible speakers. Mosaic MSC will be there leading worship. You don't want to miss it.
Hey guys, I am so excited to invite you to this year's Mosaic Conference, November 8th through 10th, right downtown at the Theater at the Ace Hotel. It's gonna be an exciting time, an amazing experience together. We're changing the format, we're changing the way the entire 3 days happen. This is going to be a journey, it's gonna be an experience. Our theme is the future of. Because as Mosaic, we're always pioneering, we're always inventing, we're always creating, we're always moving into the future. We understand that the responsibility of the church is to create the future humanity needs. So we're gonna be talking about the future of the church, the future of leadership, the future of culture, the future of creativity. You don't wanna miss this. November the 8th through 10th, sign up right now, register, don't put it off. I'll see you November 8th through 10th.
Thanks so much for joining us today. We're so glad you're here.
We're going to continue to worship, so please stand and sing with us.
You gave away your freedom for my heart. The price you paid to give eternal life. The limits of your grace go past words could not contain your love. How great is your love? My soul surrenders to who you are and all you've done. I lift my praises to you, my Savior, for who you are and all you've done. Passion moved your heart to save my soul. The universe declares your love for us. The splendor of your glory came from heaven. The proof of God pursuing us with love. How great is your love? My soul surrenders to who you are and all you've done. And I lift my praises to you, my Savior, for who you are and all you've done. Lift our praises. And maker of the heavens, there is none like you. My soul longs for you, and I believe that holy is your name, the most beautiful. None can stand against my King. Let's sing it out. Maker of the heavens, maker of the heavens, there is none like you. My soul longs for you, and I believe holy is your name, and holy is your name, the most beautiful. None can stand against my King. Come on. And maker of the heavens, there is none like you. My soul longs for you, and I believe holy is your name, holy is your name, the most beautiful. None can stand against my King. Come on. Maker of the heavens, there is none like you. My soul longs for you, and I believe. Come on. Holy is your name, the most beautiful. None can stand against my King. Come on. How great is your love? My soul surrenders to who you are and all you've done. I lift my praises to you, my Savior, for who you are and all you've done. How great is your love? My soul surrenders to who you are and all you've done. I lift my praises to you, my Savior, for who you are and all you've done. Soul surrender to who you are and all you've done. We sing, I lift my praises to you, my Savior, who you are and all you've done.
How you guys doing tonight?
So good. And you guys have done such an epic job of leading us in worship. I just want to thank you guys. LJ, man, thank you for leading us so powerfully. Can we just thank God for all these guys? So good. I just got to say, coolest thing in the world, Haven playing the drums. It's like just so good. Love that. If you're a guest, we're glad you're here. Pray that God would surprise you with himself. At the end of our time tonight, we're going to go outside and we're going to celebrate those who choose to be baptized and make a public declaration that Jesus is their Lord, that he is their source of life and hope and meaning. And that might be you. And the beautiful thing about it is that some of you have no idea it's you, but it's you. And it's going to be a life-changing moment for you. So we're going to pray. Father, thank you so much for this beautiful, beautiful day. And God, for the privilege we have of coming together and celebrating life and worshiping you and enjoying people. And God, I just pray that in this moment you would become so undeniable that each person in this room would be overwhelmed by the reality of you. And that God, they would hear your voice and follow you with all the courage and faith that they can muster in that moment. We thank you, Father. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Can we just thank God one more time for tonight? And you may be seated. It's been a crazy travel season for me. I've been going in and out of the city so much, and this week I've had 2 red eyes, which I would never recommend. And tonight, I'm getting on a red eye. And so it'll be 3 red eyes in about 4 days. And I wanted to make sure I was here live with you. And a part of the process of this traveling was taking a red eye yesterday to get back to LA because we wanted to be a part of Mosaic OC, which has been so incredible. But I could have gotten here a little bit later and slept, except that yesterday there was an event I wanted to make sure I made it to because yesterday LAFC was playing. And I love football, what you Americans call soccer, but the rest of the world calls it football because they use their feet. Only Americans would call something football when you hike it and put it in a guy's hands. But that's a whole different talk. And I fall in love with LAFC. I fall in love with just the whole experience because it's a beautiful, profound experience. And one of the things I've loved the most is taking people who don't know they would like soccer. Because 9 out of 10 Americans I meet, they go, yeah, soccer's not a sport. And in fact, I listen to like SportsCenter, ESPN, and there are some legitimate sportscasters who say soccer's not a sport, which really frustrates me because they need to pay attention to the world. So I love when I take someone new. And yesterday it happened again because our nephew Taylor is in town. He's here with us. He's staying with us. I don't know if you met Taylor. Taylor is right here. He's amazing. But I knew, stand up. Come on, stand up. Everybody say hi to Taylor. But I knew he did not want to go watch soccer. And I was even trying to enhance the experience. I said, hey, before the soccer game, there's like a falcon that flies around. That's the only moment I saw him get excited. There's a falcon? I said, yes, there's a falcon. He goes, oh, I could get into that. And I kind of knew the only reason he went with us was because going to something with us meant free food, and it meant that his Aunt Kim could not give him work to do around the house. So he came, and I figured he'd probably be on his phone the whole time. But the moment we arrived there, the stadium is so beautiful. It's been built with such care and detail and elegance that even just pulling up and then walking into the stadium, it was already winning him over. And as we're walking through the different places and different rooms, and then we found the food was already winning him over. Before the match ever started, and when we entered in, there's this whole section that cheers for 2 hours, even though the match only lasts 90 minutes. But there's this insane section where they stand the entire time. Have you ever been in a room with people who are so excited that you get excited and you don't even know what they're excited about? And it was like that. They're just cheering, so you feel like, this is awesome. I haven't even seen anything yet. And so I could feel the electricity of the room beginning to seep into his soul.
And then the match started. And I was worried about Americans because they're looking for scoring. And they'll always say, there's nothing happening. But there's so much happening. It's elegant, it's beautiful. You never know when the one goal, if there is one, is going to be scored. So you can't blink because you're going to miss that one moment. And I watched him begin to watch, and I could notice that he forgot he had a phone. And he was paying attention, and first he was eating, and then he was just watching. And then I saw his face light up, and then I watched his eyes actually get bigger. And then I heard him say, I'm so anxious. So anxious, because he was waiting, and Kevin Pena was sitting next to him, whispering into his ear, explaining to him what's going on, trying to teach him about soccer. And by the time it was over, he said, I love this. I love soccer. He said, I want to come back. I said, oh, you're not invited back, but I'm glad you had this life-changing experience that has changed your life and has taught you that there's something you would love even though you didn't think you would love it. And I started thinking about how that's probably the way a lot of people experience church. If you invite them to go to church, it's like inviting a lot of Americans to go watch soccer. Like, yeah, no thanks, I'm not into that. I'm into real football. And I think for a lot of people, if you talk to them about church or faith or spirituality or God or Jesus, they're like, hey, I'm glad you found something for you, but that's not my thing. And then if they come with you because you've just absolutely berated them with guilt and shame, and so they finally just break down and say yes, and they come, they're coming for you, but they know they're not going to enjoy it. And I think that the entire experience is a part of the message. In fact, even today, someone said to me, one of the things I love about this place is the moment I walked in, everyone, or even when I was coming in, everybody was so friendly, and everybody just wanted to know me. And I realized that the experience was being created long before you came into the space. And wouldn't it be great if you could have like an expert who was just whispering into your ear, letting you know what's going to happen next so you would not be so nervous? And I could just go, this is what's happening now, and this is why they're doing that. And then they could tell you, okay, this is when they have the human sacrifice. And my wife said to make sure I explained that we don't do that here at this campus. Because sometimes it's terrifying. But you see, the reason we try to bring people into a space like this, it's an elevated level of my experience with soccer, because we know that if a person could just step into the experience, it would change their life. They would see it from such a different perspective. And maybe one of the most frustrating things in the world is when you've had a life-changing encounter with the creator of the universe, and you've come to know that you matter to him, and that your life will be absolutely turned upside down by his presence and his reality in your life, and you're trying to help a friend see that, but you don't know how. And while we were there were all these amazing people there, but somebody pointed out to me and said, hey, do you know who that is? And there's a man there, and I said, no, I don't. And he goes, that's Peter Gruber. He owns LAFC. He built this stadium, and I've always been just really intrigued with it, because that whole section that cheers for 2 hours, they were actually recruited 2 years before the first match. And while they were building that stadium, they were taught all the songs and all the cheers and all the chants. So when that first moment of the season began, when this brand new franchise stepped on that field, they already had raving, fanatical fans. I thought, this is brilliant. They taught them how to worship before they opened up their church. That's the challenge we have a lot of times, is that we open up this experience we call church, but we're having to teach people how to worship as we go through. So I saw Peter Gruber, and he was right there, and I wanted to say hi, but you ever like seen somebody you thought, oh, I'd love to say hi, but I don't want to be that person? And I know what it's like to feel interrupted, and I didn't want to interrupt him, but he floated over, and somebody said, no, he's meeting people. He's walking around meeting people. So I said, okay, if he's walking around meeting people, I'm people. And so I thought, I'd love to meet him. And so he was just inches away from me, and I couldn't get myself to say something. And then I heard myself just blurt, Peter. Because I wanted to, and I felt apprehensive and terrified, and then it just came out, Peter. And I'm like, yo, Peter, it's me. But I just went, Peter. And he turned, And he was smiling, and I said, "Hi, I'm Erwin McManus. I just wanted to thank you so much for creating this place. It's amazing, and I just love this experience. I love bringing people here, and people who don't think they'll love this, to experience this, and they always leave loving it." And he's smiling, he's so gracious, and then he says something I did not expect. He said, "It's delicious, isn't it?" I would have never picked that word, and I wouldn't have said it like that. And he just looked at me, and he goes, "It's delicious, isn't it?" And I said, "Yes, it is. It is so delicious." Because he was right. It's delicious. I mean, I didn't know how to describe it, but it's like a delicious experience. And 3 or 4 times before he walked away, he kept saying, "It's just delicious. It's just delicious." And I'm like, "It is delicious, Peter. It's so delicious." And I realized that what has happened is that he has built something he loves. Because in the end, all of us are building something with our lives. And when we come to the end of our lives, we're going to realize that we built what we loved. Because you see, what we do with our lives intrinsically, naturally, is we build what we love. But a lot of times, we don't admit to ourselves what we love. We say we love one thing, but we're actually building another thing. And let me tell you, what you love is not what you say you love. What you love is what you actually build. And sometimes, what we build leaves us in an empty building at the end of our lives. Because what we love is wealth, or what we love is fame, or what we love is power, or what we love is stuff. And we've loved all the wrong things. And then I thought about the words of Jesus. In Matthew 16, verse 18, Jesus says, "And I tell you that you are Peter." He's talking to Peter. He says, "And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not overcome it." I thought, wow, of everything Jesus could have built, he decided to build the church. Which is kind of interesting, because if you think about it, Jesus lived 33 years and he never built anything. He never built a building or a house. He never wrote a book. He never painted a painting or sculptured a sculpture. I mean, I imagine within Jesus, he had the capacity to overshadow Michelangelo or Picasso. I have to believe that Jesus, God himself who took on flesh and blood, was more imaginative than Da Vinci, more musical than Mozart. And yet, Jesus never left anything behind that was tangible and concrete. He came to build one thing, and one thing only. He said, "And I will build my church." And if you build what you love, then what it means is that God loves the church. And it makes perfect sense, because everything Jesus did was for humanity. And by the way, the church, though we describe the buildings we walk into as churches, the church is the humanity. The church is us. And it's because God so desperately and passionately loves humanity that Jesus says, "And I will build my church," because for Jesus, the church is the reclaiming of humanity so that we can once again reflect his image and his likeness, so that we can live in love and be filled with hope and walk a life of faith, so that we can reflect what he always intended for us. So I want to ask you, what are you building with your life? Because you build what you love. So you need to be careful that you don't build what you don't think you're building. And at the end of your life, realize you've built the wrong thing. So there's this moment that I notice in the scriptures where King David builds an altar. It's a very peculiar moment, because David is a king now. He rules an empire. And in fact, there's so many things that David was building. He was building a nation. He was building an empire. David was known for his prowess. He had fame and wealth and power and prestige. He had everything that all of us at times aspire for. But in this moment, David had forgotten that he was a shepherd who became a king. He was a servant who became a leader, that he had been placed there by God, and that it was God's fame that he was supposed to be elevating, not his own fame. And so in a moment, he decided, I'm going to see how powerful I am. I'm going to see how awesome I am. So I want to count my army. And in fact, I want to recruit all the young men I can so I can have the most powerful army in the world. And his commanders came to him and said, don't do it. He goes, no, I want to do a census. I want to know how much power I have. And he said, don't do it, David, because they understood that there was this unique relationship between David and God. And if David made this choice, he would be violating that relationship with God. But he wouldn't listen to their counsel. Have you ever asked people for advice or asked people for counsel, and then you didn't like their counsel or their advice, so you went to a second person? And you didn't like their counsel or advice, so you went to a third person? See, by the way, if you go to a person and ask for counsel and then you go to a second person, it means you're not looking for advice, you're looking for agreement. You're not looking for people who give you wise counsel. You're looking for people who give you false consensus. You're looking for someone who just affirms you. And by the way, if you go to 3, 4, 5 people asking advice for the exact same issue, your idea is so bad that you can't even find a friend as foolish as you to tell you that's awesome, that's a great idea. You should actually measure the strength of your choices based on how many people you have to go to have someone say, you should do that. David gets pushback from his commanders, and it was dangerous because he was king and he could have had them killed. But David does it anyway. He commands the census, and then God becomes angry. And God goes to David and says, because of what you've done, there's going to be a consequence. 1/3 of your armies are going to be wiped out. Because of what you've done, people's lives have been jeopardized and ruined. And then God says, I'm going to let you choose the form of punishment. I'm going to let you choose how this consequence is played out. And David, he has remorse. His heart is broken. He realizes what he's done. And by the way, you have to give people a chance to change. See, David made a terrible choice, but once he saw the consequence of that choice, his heart was genuinely broken. There was sincere remorse. There was actual repentance. And I never want to live in a world where we don't let people choose a new way. And David says to God, I'm not going to choose how the consequence happens. I know I can't choose whether the consequence is going to happen, so I'm going to let you in your mercy decide how you play this out, God, because you're more merciful than me. And so God sends a plague, and 70,000 men lose their lives, and it's a really painful moment. And then in the midst of this moment, it says that the angel of God was on his way to Jerusalem, and he stopped at this field, the threshing floor of Araunah, the Jebusite. And that's where God arrested his wrath and began to express an unexpected compassion and mercy, because that's always what drives God. And then this happens. 2 Samuel 24, beginning of verse 18. On that day, Gad went to David and said to him, go up and build an altar to the Lord on the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite. So David went up as the Lord had commanded through Gad. When Araunah looked and saw the king and his officials coming toward him, he went out and bowed down before the king with his face to the ground. Araunah said, why has the Lord the king come to his servant? To buy your threshing floor, David answered, so I can build an altar to the Lord, that the plague on the people may be stopped. Araunah said to David, let my lord the king take whatever he wishes and offer it up. Here are oxen for the burnt offering, and here are threshing sledges and ox yokes for the wood. Your Majesty, Araunah gives all this to the king. Araunah also said to him, may the Lord your God accept you. But the king replied to Araunah, no, I insist on paying you for it. I will not sacrifice to the Lord my God burnt offerings that cost me nothing. So David bought the threshing floor and the oxen and paid 50 shekels of silver for them. David built an altar to the Lord there and sacrificed burnt offerings and fellowship offerings. Then the Lord answered his prayer in behalf of the land, and the plague on Israel was stopped. In this moment, David makes a decision to build an altar that alters the future for an innumerable number of people. In fact, people's lives were being affected who did not even know that David's choices were affecting them. And one of the things that you discover the longer you live is that when you are building your life, that there are other people who are affected by the life you're building. So the reason it's so important to make sure that when you look at your life, you can say, love built this, because your life isn't singular, it's not isolated, it's connected to other people. And then it makes sense to me why Jesus says, and I will build my church, because Jesus, when he came to create a space for all of us. To create a space where those who are broken can find healing, for those who are desperate can find hope, for those who are filled with fear can find faith. Jesus came to create a space where those who are disconnected can connect, for the outsiders to belong. Jesus understood that his choice to give himself on behalf of all of humanity would create a space for all of humanity. One choice affected us all. And sometimes I think we misunderstand how to build our lives so that it reflects a life of love. See, if you're going to make sure that love is the material of your life, you need to realize that the primary material from which we build our lives are relationships. That you have to own your influence. You need to realize the material of your life are the people in your life. David made a choice that affected thousands upon thousands of people. Well, one reason is because he was a king. I think all of us, we want to be kings, but we don't want the responsibility of kings. See, I think probably everyone here says, oh God, give me more influence. Oh, I want to have more fame. I want to have more power. I want to have a bigger life. I think most of the time we want to have more influence, but we do not want to have more responsibility. But the more influence you have in your life, the more responsibility you have for your life. Because when you have influence, you actually affect the lives of other people. I wonder if you've ever thought to yourself, well, it's just my life. You ever had that thought? You ever had someone kind of like talk to you about your life and go, hey, it's my life. I can live it any way I want. And usually when we make a terrible decision, we follow it up with, hey, I'm not hurting anybody but myself. You ever said that? You ever had someone say that to you? You know what to me is fascinating? Whenever someone says, I'm not hurting anyone but myself, they're almost always hurting the very person they're saying that to. Because there is never a moment in your life, there's never a choice that you make that only hurts you. Every choice that you've ever made that has hurt you has hurt someone else. You can never convince yourself, if you want to be truthful about your life, that your choices are made in isolation. The worst choices of your life have the most profound and destructive impact on the people who care about you. By the way, is it safe to care about you? You ever notice that when you care about someone who doesn't care about themselves, they end up wounding you? See, one of the most challenging things in the world is that when people make choices, they sometimes affect strangers, but they always affect friends. See, when you make a terrible choice, when you make a self-serving choice, when you make a destructive choice, the people who are closest to you, they They are damaged by the shrapnel of your choices. Have you ever cared about someone that wasn't safe to care about? In fact, you maybe even tried to talk yourself out of it. I don't know why I keep caring about this person, because they just keep hurting themselves and they keep hurting me. See, some of you, you know the wounding of caring about someone who did not care about themselves. Have you ever loved someone that was really too dangerous to love? See, I think it's one of the reasons there's so many people who feel so broken and have so much devastation in their soul. It's because they took a risk of loving someone that wasn't safe to love. Because when you care about yourself, you move yourself into proximity to someone. And the moment you hold someone with profoundly painful, jagged edges, they cut deep into your soul. And when you love someone, you open yourself to them. When you love someone, you make yourself vulnerable to them. When you love someone, you remove all the protection from your heart and you place your heart in their hands. And if they're dangerous, if they're not trustworthy, they will crush your love. But maybe the question you have to first ask is it safe to love you? Is it safe for your friends to care about you? Are the people in the universe of your life, are they living with damage because they're so close to you? David made a choice to damage the lives of so many. And that damage was irreversible. That damage passed from generation to generation. The damage was real. But one of the things that we're reminded when David decided to go build the altar is that you can make a different choice. See, if you own your influence and realize that the most important, valuable gift that God ever gives you are people, that relationships are the economy of God, then you have to take the stewardship of the choices you make. Do you realize that if you can damage someone's life, that means you can actually heal someone too? That if you're filled with bitterness and anger, if you're filled with greed and envy, of course, it's going to be dangerous to love you. But when someone cares about you and you're filled with hope, and someone loves you and you're filled with compassion, when someone opens up their soul to you and your soul is alive with love, there's nothing better in the world than loving you. See, I want to be a person that's safe to care about. I want to be a person that's safe to love. I want when a person opens their soul to me, that everything good comes out of my soul and pours into theirs. Wouldn't it be a beautiful thing if everyone who was in your sphere of influence actually became more hopeful because of you? That everyone in your sphere of influence actually became more joyful because of you. I think sometimes we undervalue how important it is to be a person who actually brings joy and happiness into a room where people feel better about themselves and better about life and become optimistic about the future. See, when you enter the room and you bring compassion and forgiveness and kindness, you push out of their souls shame and guilt and bitterness. There's some of you here who haven't yet taken stewardship of the influence that God has given you. And maybe where you need to begin to build a house that's built on love is to take ownership of the relationships in your life, the influence God's given you, the people in your universe. In fact, I wonder how many of you here actually know someone that right now needs to be here, but they're not. I just want you to raise your hand. You know someone that needs to be here, but they're not. See, if you don't know someone who needs to be here, you don't know enough people. Because the only way you don't know someone who needs to be here is that you're not investing in the people around you. Because our city is drowning in despair. People are drowning in their loneliness. People are paralyzed in their disconnection. There are people right now crying out to a God they do not know, who they're not even sure exists, saying, "Are you out there?" There are people who are desperately wondering, does anyone care about me? Do I matter at all? And they're the material from which God wants to build his house. So when Jesus says, I will build my church, he's saying, I'm gonna build a future on those people who don't know they have one. I'm gonna build a house on people who don't know they're loved, who have no place to belong, who feel so broken that they don't think they can ever be healed. If you're gonna build a house based on love, if you're gonna look back on your life and say, love built this, you have to own your influence, but then you have to build your altar. Then Araunah saw the king coming from a distance. It says, when Araunah looked and saw the king and the officials coming toward him, he went out and bowed down before the king and with his face to the ground. And Araunah said, why has my lord the king come to his servant? To buy your threshing floor, David answered. And Kim was explaining to me that a threshing floor is where you separate the wheat from the stalk. So the threshing floor would be the centerpiece of Araunah's economy. And David says, I need to take the place where you make your living and set it on fire. To buy your threshing floor, David said, so I can build an altar to the Lord that the plague on the people may be stopped. Araunah said to David, let my lord the king take whatever he wishes and offer it up. Here are the oxen for the burnt offering, and here are our threshing sledges and ox yokes for the wood. Your majesty, Araunah gives all this to the king. Araunah also said to him, may the Lord your God accept you. Now, this may seem like Araunah is the most generous man in the world, saying, whatever you need, it's yours. Take my threshing floor, take my ox, take the yoke, take everything. Just create your altar, set it on fire. It's all yours. But he didn't really have a choice because David's the king. When you see the king coming from a distance with his entourage, and he gets off a horse and you're throwing yourself on the ground saying, why are you here, my lord? He goes, I want your threshing floor. You're going, it's yours. It's yours, king. It's always been yours. I've just been taking care of it until you showed up. Because see, it was David's kingdom. And it would be David's right to say, this, and this, it's all mine. In fact, in the past, David had taken things that were not his. So it wouldn't be unlike him at some point in his life. So when Araunah says this, he says exactly what you have to say to a king. There's no way you could say to the king, well, that's my threshing floor, and it's not for sale. Or, the economy's a little tight right now. I think it's a pretty valuable threshing floor. And the ox, they're a high commodity right now. See, you don't negotiate with the king. You just give the king whatever he asks for. And David could have taken it all. And in his own mind, he could have justified it and said, I don't need to pay for this. I'm the king. It's mine. But the king replied to Araunah, no, I insist on paying for this. There's a reason why David insisted on paying for everything he needed to build that altar on the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite. It's because this was not to be Araunah's altar. It wasn't anyone's altar except for David's. David needed to build this altar. It was David's decision that caused so much pain. It was David's decision that created the consequence. And it was David who must pay for the altar to be built. He had to pay for what he would set on fire. This offering had to come out of David's soul because this altar had to be an extension of who David was. See, I think a lot of times we confuse going to an altar and becoming an altar. See, you are in this experience we call church, but just because you're in church doesn't mean you are church. See, because you're not supposed to just build an altar, you're supposed to be an altar. And if you want to build a life that reflects the love that Jesus has for humanity, if you want to join the mission of Jesus, if you want to build what Jesus is building, because I want you to know, Jesus is actually building something. He's a soul architect. He's designing the most beautiful community humanity has ever known. And if you want to be a part of building that, then you have to build your altar that defines who you are. See, David stood at the intersection between God and humanity. He stood at the point of intersection where God's judgment and his wrath stopped and his mercy and compassion began, because that was always God's intention. And David stood owning his mistakes, stood owning his choices, and stood. And by the way, he didn't build this altar for himself. In fact, it says, I need to pray on behalf of the people. And when he set that altar on fire, he prayed not for himself. It says he prayed on behalf of the land. There has to come a point in your life where you stop thinking your spiritual journey is about God getting on your side to help you live out your dreams. There has to come a point in your life where you stop asking God to join your mission and you hear God's invitation to join his mission. What marks your life? What are you known for? Because if the materials of building a house of love is influence, it's also identity. Have you ever felt like people didn't really know who you were? Or people kept misjudging you or misinterpreting you? Have you ever felt like people would say things about you that you didn't think was true about you? See, this week I had a conversation that said, hey, you have reality and then you have perception. And the perception is what matters. We think it's the reality that matters. But the problem is, reality can actually be a perception. See, if you think everyone's perception of you doesn't match reality, your reality is a perception. So if people keep saying the wrong things about you, people keep misunderstanding me. Have you ever had, I hope this isn't true, not here, but you ever had people say to you, like, you never buy lunch. You always forget your wallet. You never offer to pay. You're like, that's not true. I remember back in 2004, Pizza Hut, I offered to pay. I didn't pay, but I offered to pay. See, if people perceive that you're a taker, but you know you're a giver, you're a taker. You ever have people just misunderstand who you really are? Anybody ever look at you and say, you're angry all the time? You go, no, I'm not. I'm angry right now because you're misjudging me, you're misrepresenting me. See, if people tell you you're angry all the time, that's who you are. You may not like the reality and you think it's a perception, but you need to re-perceive your reality. This is a city where everyone wants to be identified with something, but very few people want to be identified with Jesus. And here in this moment, David, he was now the king. He didn't have to get off his horse and build an altar and become a servant again. But he forgot who he was, and he needed to reclaim the mark that made him king. And it was a servant. He stepped back to his place of worshiping God rather than expecting to be worshiped. I wonder how many of us here carry the mark of Jesus wherever we go. Because I find a lot of people are really into soccer when they're at the stadium. And then you ask them later, hey, do you ever watch soccer at home? No, never have any time. I meant to say, I think a lot of people are really into God when you're in church. But the moment you leave, you're not really into God anymore. Do people actually know what you say you believe completely and fully? Do they see in you the mark of Jesus where you go? By the way, when that happens, it can really change your life. Because you see, when you love people, when you take stewardship of your influence, when you own your influence, you change the way you live your life. You make different choices because when you finally love people more than you love yourself, it changes your entire value system. But in the same way, when you decide that your identity is now rooted not in everything else everyone else says matters, but your identity is now rooted in your relationship to the creator of the universe. Your relationship is now rooted in the God who stepped into human history. Your identity is now rooted in the person of Jesus, who was crucified, buried, and raised from the dead for you. It changes everything in your life. And what sometimes we don't realize is one of the ways God builds his house of love is that he uses you as a marker for people searching for him. Yeah, you ever just cried out, God, give me a sign. Just show me the way. See, I think there are a lot of people looking for a sign, but they don't realize that we're supposed to be the sign. But we aren't shining, so they don't see the sign. This has been a crazy, crazy week, and when we were at that game, LAFC yesterday, at one point, Joe or Kevin said, look, the Salvadorian flag, because that crazy section, the fanatics, held up the Salvadorian flag. And yeah, El Salvador. And he said, look, the Salvadorian flag. And I said, oh, and before I could even say anything, the woman beneath us, down below, stands up, El Salvador. She joined our conversation. And I said, El Salvador. She said, I was born in San Jose. I said, I was born in San Salvador. That's amazing. It was so cool to meet this complete stranger, but now we're connected. And then she says, my husband's from Italy, and she starts telling me where all her children were from. And we started having a conversation, and then as we talked, and I said, what do you guys do? And she goes, well, my husband owns an Italian restaurant. Of course, he's from Italy. He builds what he loves. And then she goes, what do you do? And I said, I'm a pastor. I started a church called Mosaic. She goes, really? She goes, where is it? I said, it's on Hollywood Boulevard in La Brea. It's the round building. And she goes, oh, this is crazy, but my husband just asked me to find him a church. We're not religious, and we're both Catholic, but he's really more Buddhist. She goes, but he wants to go to church because he says, I'm Italian, I need music. Because people are searching for music, I mean God. And she goes, so we thought about finding like a black church. She said, because I thought, who does good music? And she said, black church. So I said, makes perfect sense to me. And I said, this is Pastor Joe Smith. I said, I want you to meet our black church. She got all excited. That's so awesome. See, Mosaic doesn't believe in monochromatic communities. We're multicolored. And we just have this great conversation, and I just happened to take the red eye so I can get to the game. And she just happened to have a friend who owned those seats, who invited them to go to the game. She just happened to be from El Salvador. I just happened to be from El Salvador. He just happened to see the Salvadorian flag. He just happened to say, look at the Salvadorian flag. Her husband just happened to say, you need to find me a church. I just happened to have a church that I could invite her to. And see, when you build an altar with your life and you set it on fire, there's an aroma that goes out, and the world begins to smell this aroma called life. And when you build your altar and you let love build your life, you become delicious. I'm just gonna believe one day Peter Gruber's gonna come to Mosaic. He's gonna come in and he's going, this is delicious. Because this is the best meal in town. Because here we're serving life and love and hope and meaning and community and belonging and a future. Where can you get a better meal than that? What altar defines your life? You have one. Your altar may be fame, your altar may be wealth, your altar may be power, your altar may be pleasure. Your altar is whatever you're giving your love to. And you can know what you love by what you build. And if you say you love the God who loves you, you begin to build with him. And then you'll come to the end of your life and you'll go, God, thank you that you taught me how to build what I love and to make love the defining measure of my life. It's a beautiful thing. We have a team right now who's leaving tonight to go to Puerto Rico. About 20 people. And I'm on that team because my wife's on that team and she recruited me on that team. And we have a lot of Latinos going. Most everyone speaks Spanish. It's a beautiful thing. And we're gonna fly all night because I need 3 red eyes in 4 days. That's what I need. And you know why we're going? Because a year ago, Puerto Rico was devastated by a hurricane. And even though the report said only 16 people were killed, almost 3,000 people lost their lives because of that devastation. We're going there because they feel alone and disconnected because they don't know how loved they are. We're going there because our entire lives have been reoriented by love. And we're going to build a house of love. We're going there to help them rebuild their house so they can know there's a God who loves them. We want to stand at the altar, the intersection between God and humanity's pain, and let them know that God's compassion and his mercy, his kindness, his generosity is waiting for them. We want to be the sign that they see. Sometimes it gets exhausting being a sign for God, and it's easier to hide. In fact, this week I needed just a little time, and I thought I'm gonna go exercise. And so I joined a new gym just to have another place to go. And I went to a location that I thought maybe no one would know me, or Mosaic, and I got in line to get some water. This is my first day to try to work out, and right when I'm buying the water, I hear Mosaic, which is my name. And because no one remembers Erwin, and so my code name is Mosaic. And I have headphones on. Now, everybody knows in LA what headphones mean. We all know the sign language of headphones. I'm not available. Do not talk to me. I'm not interested in the human race. I am here for myself. And we all know, and my headphones were clearly too small. My headphones were maybe saying, don't interrupt me unless you have to. See, I need giant headphones, like a helmet. And this kindest guy in the world, I really liked him when I met him. He said, Mosaic. He said, I just came to Mosaic for the first time last week in Venice Beach. And this is amazing. I can't believe that you're right here. I can't believe I'm meeting you. And we're talking. And we were not talking yet. But I was listening. And as we were talking, and I got to know him and asked his name, and I have to admit, I enjoyed him so much. And I had 2 thoughts in my head. Oh, man, I came to work out. And then I had a second thought. This is why I sent you here, so that you and him could have a conversation. And because your job is to be an altar, your job is to be a signpost. People need to find me, and how are they going to find me if they can't find you? And so we had this 20-minute conversation, and then he says, I would love for my girlfriend to meet you. And I said, sure, that'd be great. And so he runs, and I thought he was going to get his girlfriend, but she didn't come back with him. I think when he said, there's the pastor Mosaic here, I want you to meet him, she was working out. She decided to go take a shower and get dressed because she didn't want to meet me sweaty. So 20 minutes later, she comes, and in between, another person comes and says, oh, and I'm having a 40-minute community experience with people at this exercise fitness club. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm just going to die a fat, out-of-shape man because I can't get to the elliptical machine. But what would happen if all of us became altars, and everywhere we went, people came to us, to every one of us, and said, you're like a God person, aren't you? There's something different about you. And I went from there, and I finally got a little bit of workout, so I thought, I just need a little time away. So I went over to this little, I went to this little spa, because I want a steam room or sauna. And so I went up to the register because I know you have to get something. So I said, hey, what do you have right now, just this minute, just need to go in. They said, well, we have this little 30-minute facial. I said, great, whatever that is, I'll take that. And then I hear, excuse me, are you Erwin McManus from Mosaic? I'm at a spa. I'm trying to go put a towel around my nakedness and hide in a steam room. And I look, and it's a rabbi. It's a rabbi. And he says, "Hi, I'm a rabbi." That's how I know he was a rabbi. And he said, "I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I just can't believe that we're talking to you." And I don't think he recognized me. I don't think he'd ever seen me. He goes, "I recognize your voice when you're talking to the receptionist, because I've been listening to your podcast every week." He goes, "I know I'm not supposed to." But I've been listening every week, and I've read the last arrow, what you did with Elisha. It was just life-changing. And this is amazing. I would love for this to happen at another moment, and it would be so incredible. It was beautiful, and so I gave him my email address, and he emailed me right away, and he said, "I think we're going to be great friends." I think we are too. He's wonderful. And that family we met at the football game, they already sent me a text even this morning and said, "We're coming to Mosaic next Sunday." See, this is a house that was never supposed to be built by just one person. Because I'm not the only one here who's supposed to build an altar. We're all supposed to do it. We're supposed to be the altar. We set ourselves on fire. We become the aroma of God. We become the signposts of faith. When people are searching for God, they find us on the journey, and we help them find the God who loves them. What would happen if all of us this week decided, I'm going to build a house whose material is love? Because you build what you love. And if you love what Jesus loves, you're going to build the church. Because you're going to love people. You're going to care about people. They're going to matter, and your life cannot be just about yourself. And let me just close with this. See, if you're going to look back on your life and say, "Oh, I like the house I built." Love's everywhere. You have to own your influence and build your altar. And I want to ask you, what does love drive you to build? What are you building right now that is the proof of love in your life? But the last thing is you need to leave your legacy. See, because when you love, it compels you to sacrifice. The last thing David said is this. I just want to, after he says, "No, I insist on paying you for it," he says this. I want you to mark these words. David says, "I will not sacrifice to the Lord an offering that costs me nothing." Those words, they haunt me. I will not offer to the Lord a sacrifice that costs me nothing. How could we ever think something could be a sacrifice if it costs us nothing? And I think the problem so oftentimes is that God gives so freely to us that sometimes we think everything's actually free. See, Jesus gives us life, and he gives us freedom. He fills us with hope and love. He forgives us of all of our sin. He delivers us from our past, and he gives us a future. And everything Jesus does for us, everything God does for us, he does it freely. You don't have to work for it. You don't have to earn it. You don't even have to deserve it. He just gives it to you. But you need to be careful that you don't confuse free with cheap. Because everything God does for us, it's free. But sometimes we devalue that. We think there was no sacrifice involved because it's free. See, we are living inside of the sacrifice of Jesus. Our freedom only exists because of Jesus' sacrifice. And Jesus gave everything. He gave himself on that cross for us. And his sacrifice became our freedom. What do you love enough to sacrifice for? See, you can know if you love something because you're willing to sacrifice for it. We're doing so much as a community, and it's been amazing to me. We're doing an event in Seattle, and I didn't know we were doing an event in Seattle, but now I know we're doing an event in Seattle because Aaron and Lawrence found this little space that holds 350 people. They decided to throw a free event. I don't like free events because it confuses people. They think it's actually free. See, when an event is free to you, it costs someone something. You can get confused as we devalue it. Because when you give something to someone for free, they don't necessarily feel obligated to show up because it's free. It didn't cost them anything. What happened within an hour, there was like 800 people who registered for the Mosaic event in Seattle. We didn't expect that. But now we have a place that holds 350. And I said, it's okay. Just don't say it's sold out. Just see what happens. And the next day we had 1,400 people signed up for our event. And they text me, Aaron and Lawrence, what do we do? What do we do? And then Lawrence said, we have another place, but it costs so much money. And I saw the price. I said, yeah, it's okay. No. And then he got the price down in half, but it was still way too high. And I said, it's okay. We'll just keep the other place, the cheap place, so that it's closer to free, and we'll just let 1,000 people stand outside. It'll be like a really epic experience. And then I felt like God just sort of like slapped me and said, oh, you're interested in Seattle, but you're not ready to sacrifice. So we're doing an event in Seattle, and we're renting that really expensive place. And we have Sasha, who's from Moldova, and he came to me and said, I want to do a Mosaic in Moldova. And I'm like, I don't even know where Moldova is. It sounds like where Anne Hathaway was princess. Where is that? And I know, it's embarrassing, I know that. But I have a daughter. And we said, all right, so he starts an Instagram for Mosaic Moldova, and he's just plugging away and working away. It's because Sasha loves Moldova, and he's willing to sacrifice to help them find love and meaning and to give them an authentic and relevant expression of faith. I have another friend in Quebec. He flew down and he said, we need Mosaic here, because he loves Quebec. Another friend, Andres and Anna, they're in Ecuador. They've only been a Christian just a short time. They said, we love Mosaic and we feel so connected, and we invited people who don't know God to our house. We had almost 150 people who did not believe in God. What should we do? I said, well, it looks like you're starting a church. He goes, but nobody knows Jesus. I said, I know it. It's just like Mosaic. And he goes, well, you come down. And I said, of course I will. I said, we think we're going to have 500 people. And I said, well, guess what? You're the pastor now. Both of you. And they're like, we can't be pastors. Yes. No one else knows Jesus. You're so far ahead of them. So now they're the pastors of our emerging Mosaic in South America. I just keep seeing this happening. Why? Because there are people who love so deeply, they love so profoundly, they cannot stop themselves from sacrificing to create something that matters. And Emerson's down in Mexico. And I thought it was so interesting because I saw a guy this week who knew Emerson 10 years ago. And he said, Emerson is the pastor of Mosaic Mexico City? I said, yeah, he's just crushing. In less than a year, he has over 1,000 people, over 800 people coming to Jesus. And he goes, that's crazy. He goes, when I knew Emerson, he was like a furniture or woodworker guy. He would build tables and build furniture. And he goes, I just never thought Emerson could be a pastor and lead like that. It's an amazing thing what God can do with a carpenter. But Emerson emails me, goes, what do I do? I have 1,100 people and 18 givers. I said, yep. See, there's 1,100 people who love what the church offers and 18 people who love the church. I always think it's interesting. If I ever bring up money, I'll always get an email with someone upset. It just always happens. And it finally hit me when I was reading this, that the reason they get upset that I talk about money and giving tithes and offerings to the church is that they actually don't love the church. They love what the church gives them, but they don't love the church enough to give. You see, when you love something, you understand that sacrifice is necessary. When you love your children, you know you sacrifice for them. When you love your wife, you want to sacrifice for her. When you love someone, sacrifice is a non-negotiable. And here's the beautiful thing. You never have to sacrifice anything to get God to love you. But once you know love, He doesn't have to work hard to get you to sacrifice. Because when you love fully, you sacrifice freely. And I wonder, what do you love? What is your love building? What do you love so much it leads you, it compels you to sacrifice? There are some of you here right now. The starting point is you need to stop going to church and you need to start becoming the church. You need to stop simply receiving what Jesus is building and start building what Jesus is building with him. And I want to challenge some of you guys to stop simply receiving and start investing. Live a life of sacrifice. Because when you live a life of sacrifice, you are living a life of love. And when you live a life of love, you live a life of sacrifice. And there are others of you that your first step tonight is you just need to receive freely the sacrifice Jesus has already given for you. When Jesus died on the cross 2,000 years ago, he died so that you could live. He rose from the dead so that you could be free. And what I want to do right now is I want to just invite you to cross the line of faith and to trust Jesus with your life. And right now, I just want you to whisper a simple prayer. Here it is. Jesus, I give you my life. Right now. I'm not even going to have you bow your heads and close your eyes. I just want you right now, wherever you are, just whisper to him. Just say to him, Jesus, I give you my life. Jesus, I give you my life. That's not everything you and God need to talk about, but it's where you start. Right now, there's some of you, your life has changed in this moment. Your future has changed in this moment. You've just received the love that Jesus came to give you, and he's going to begin to build your life with love. When you look back on your life, you're going to know that love built this. Right now, just tell him, Jesus, I give you my life. There's others of you here, you've invited Jesus into your life, but you've never gone public. You've put it off, you've given yourself all kinds of excuses and reasons. But when you fall in love, you can't help it. You just are compelled to act. And we're gonna baptize in just a moment. And there's some of you who are here right now, and you need to go public. You need to build your altar and mark your soul and say, I belong to Jesus. Jesus is Lord, and I'm all in. And tonight is going to be the defining moment of your life. And so what I want you to do right now is if you prayed and gave your life to Jesus, right now, I just want everybody just to bow your heads and close your eyes. I want you just to hold your hand up right now and say, yes, I give my life to Jesus. Beautiful. Anyone else? We just whispered that prayer. Beautiful. Jesus, I give you my life. Anyone else? Jesus, I give you my life. Right now, just raise your hand. Let me know. Jesus, I give you my life. Father, I pray for those in this moment who've opened their lives to you. We can trust you with our hearts. We can trust you with our love. I pray, God, you just wrap them up in your love and let them know they belong to you. Now, with your heads bowed, there's some of you here who've invited Jesus in your life in the past, but you need to set a marker in your life right now and say, I'm going public. Jesus is Lord and I'm all in. And you need to follow him in baptism. So I want everyone right now just to look up. I want everyone to open their eyes, because I want you to do this in the most awkward and uncomfortable possible circumstance. Because when you leave this place, life is full of challenges. If you don't find the courage to be identified with Jesus here, you won't find the courage to be identified with him out there. So if you're here right now and you would say, I'm ready to follow Jesus, I'm ready to be identified with him, I'm going to be baptized right now. We have clothes waiting for you. This door is going to open right now. And I want you right now just to stand up and go and be baptized right now. Just come right now. Beautiful. Come on. Come on. So good. Come on. Come on. Right now. This is your moment. Jesus is Lord and I'm all in. This is your moment right now. So good. Come on, right now. Front row, back row, come on. This is your moment. Jesus is Lord. Make your mark right now. Identify with him. Let love build your life right now. Right now, just come. This is your moment. Come on, anyone else? Come on, this is it. All right, come on, this is so beautiful. Wow, come on, they're just coming, just keep coming. All right, come on, let's go. This is a defining moment of your life. This is where your past ends and your future begins. This is your moment. Who else? Someone else? Anyone else? This is your moment to follow Jesus. This is your moment to be identified with him. This is your moment to build your altar. There's always someone who waits. Always someone who just holds on for dear life. Let me ask you, if you know in your heart that it's time for you to follow Jesus, and you're holding on to a life you don't even want, you're holding on to a past you do not want to be your future, why don't you just let go of your past and let Jesus give you a new future? Let this be that moment. Is there anyone else right now? This is the moment your soul has been longing for. Okay. Come on. Beautiful. So good. So good. Anyone else? Come on. So beautiful. All right. We're going to sing one last song. I'm going to ask you guys, the moment that song's finished and our pastor comes and gives you the closing instructions, to go outside and celebrate baptisms, because the next gathering is waiting outside, waiting to come in. I like the fact that they're out there and they don't know what's going on in here, because I know that God never stays on our own schedules. He always wants to interrupt our lives or our existence and give us life. Isn't it good to know you can come to Mosaic and it's always unexpected? It's always going to be a life-changing moment for people. So let's stand, let's sing that song. Thank you guys so much. Love you all.
Sing, holy is your name. Holy is your name, the most beautiful. None can stand against my King. Come on, sing, maker of the heavens. Maker of the heavens, there is none. My soul longs for you, and I believe. Holy is your name, the most beautiful. None can stand against my King. Play this right now. Maker of the heavens. Maker of the heavens, there is none like you. My soul longs for you.
Give it up and celebrate how many people went out to get baptized right now. Amazing. There's nothing better than Baptism Sunday, yeah? It's incredible. That's the most guys I think I've ever seen. Usually the guys, they're like, the girl goes first, and then they're behind him. All right, I'll give my life to Jesus today. That's incredible. Can we thank my dad and just give him some love? What a brilliant message. So amazing. I heard it 5 times. And I honestly have taken more notes on this one message than I think ever before. So if you think that hearing a message once, imagine what it does twice. All I know is I'm happy about it. So if you made the decision and maybe in your heart, and maybe we didn't raise hands tonight, but if you maybe didn't go get baptized and you don't have a Bible, we want to make sure you get one. This is a book. It says "You Belong Here" on it. We mean it. And it's a book about a bunch of people who do life together. You should read it, and if you don't, and you wonder why your life's still a mess, you can go back and you can read it. Remember this one moment. And I think sometimes we overcomplicate it in our heads. If you open it and you talk to God and you pray and you listen and you ask God, sometimes we just talk. We don't listen. Wow, right? So, okay. And then we got this thing. This amazing book. My dad is hot. Dang. Chasing Daylight. I'm like, My mom was chasing Erwin. Come on. My mom's shaking her head right here like, you're going to Puerto Rico. You guys see me for a week. I love you. We're doing book clubs. So wherever you can start a book club, start a book club. Email Joe, email me. Our emails are super simple to figure out. We want to know where you start a book club. We want you to start one. We want you to tell us how you're doing it. We want to. It's like we want books in the wild everywhere, right? Right? Oh my gosh, rhetorical. Okay. Remember me? I'm the guy who harassed you for 7 minutes at the offering talk. So, but and then last but not least, let's go cheer on these people who are getting baptized tonight and love on them and get out of here. We'll see you next week. Yeah. All right. Have a good night. Come on.